If you're part of the law enforcement family, this is your show. Here we talk about all things Leo family life, the good, the bad, the funny, and the sad, and everything in between. Crime is exploding across America. Defunding the police is causing even more chaos and increased crime in communities we live, work, and raise our families. Defunding the police, ironically, requires more police officers to work overtime, which costs taxpayers more money and leads to decreased officer morale, increased burnout, and unfortunately, more mistakes. Less than lethal options will simply result in more fatal police shootings. We need your support to refund the police. Fight back against defunding the police. Politicians want to slash police. Tell them no. Do your part to support police. Show you care. Your donations will go towards development of a national media advertising blitz to rally Americans who are sick and tired of the attacks on law enforcement and focus on the negative impact the Defund the Police movement is having on our country. The establishment of a strike team of researchers and reporters to highlight the devastating impact of defunding the police. And we will work within our communities to highlight both positive stories of law enforcement.
So I'm throwing them the thank you party to show them I still appreciate them. To my heroes, I want to say don't stop, please don't give up. Many do not care or appreciate the sacrifices that you make every day, that I do.
And bring you the stories that are ignored by the mainstream media. Donate today, and together, let's refund the police. Well, hello, Blue family and friends. Thanks for coming back for another episode of Blue Family Unity. I'm Elsa Kurt, and today we are continuing our conversation with Jim Rasciti, who is a clinical social worker, and he does some pretty amazing work with first responders and their families in helping them handle and deal and manage the stresses of their jobs, and not just their firefighters and police officers, also their family members. And a lot of us, including myself, were not aware that those services were available to family members as well as our law enforcement or first responder spouses. So there was a lot of great information in this interview, and I'm so excited to share both parts with you. I hope you checked out part one. It's up and available. You can watch it on Right America Media, and everywhere that you can find me, you can find that video. And so without further ado, let's get over to part two of that great interview. Thanks. And I almost feel this sense of relief from anybody who might be listening and realizing that I can get help. It's going to be okay. And, you know, nothing bad is going to come of it. And I think you made such a great point too, that what you're doing to, you know, self-medicate or self-help right now, the excessive drinking, they tend to shut down and close down emotionally. All of those things are more detrimental to your job and your home life than getting help would be. And that's such a huge takeaway, I think. And I really hope that, you know, I think we talked about maybe via email, if this helps one person, I think you said that, if this helps one person, gets them to reach out and get the help that they need, it's so worth it. Now, as spouses, and this might be a little bit maybe more complex, this could be like a whole other episode probably, but how do we, as spouses and loved ones, how do we help and how do we recognize the signs of especially unhealthy stress? I mean, stress is stress. Stress exists. We live with stress. But, you know, of course, we're talking about the excessive stresses, the really detrimental stuff. So kind of a two-parter. How do we help and how do we recognize these things?
Sure. So how you recognize, so that's a broad one, but a couple of things. Any dramatic changes in someone's normal personality and behavior, right? As a broad brush. So I'm your spouse, and I'm usually very engaged with the family and talkative, and then all of a sudden I seem withdrawn. I'm not going to the kids' ball games. Again, that's 180-degree change of my normal personality and behavior. Something is going on with me. Right? Could be work related. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's a combination of things. I think some of the more other behavioral things are someone's drinking is increased, right? I used to go out with the boys twice a week. Now I'm going 5 nights a week, right? I'm having a sleep disturbance, right? I'm having difficulty sleeping. I mean, there are behavioral manifestations that something is going on, even though we're not quite sure what's going on. The challenge is, how does the family help that person? Okay, so one is talking about that, right? So the wife saying to the husband or the partner or the wife, I noticed that you're spending less time with the family. Everything okay? You want to talk? Or the issue around drinking, right? I mean, that's an obvious thing. You know, if I've gone out, I typically go out twice a week, and now I'm going out 4 or 5 times. Something's going on. You can reach out to me. Now, again, the challenge is going to be, and you already said that, if they close down, right, and they did experience a couple of bad calls, they're probably not going to share that with you, right? So there's not much you can do except express your concerns to your loved one and say, I'm here if you ever want to talk, right? Now, if the drinking is getting out of hand and you're concerned about it and your loved one isn't interested in talking to anyone, I would find out, does the department have a police peer support team? Is there someone on that team who's tight with your husband or your partner? I would give them a ring and say, hey, John, you know, I'm worried about my husband, my partner, my wife. I think they're drinking more than usual. Have you noticed anything? And then see if that officer, that member of the peer team, will talk to them.
Those are great suggestions. Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I think a lot of times, I think what happens is they don't know when they should say something. You know, how long do I hear that a lot. You know, well, you know, this just happened. It's only been a week. It's been a couple of weeks. How long do I give him to process this or move on from it or get over it? Am I waiting too long? You know, I hear a lot of self-doubt and uncertainty as to the when do I step in.
Right. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
That really is. It depends on all sorts of factors, right? But
Absolutely.
I think the most important thing is to communicate our concerns with our loved ones. Knowing full well you can't force your wife, husband, partner into treatment, right? But you certainly can express your concerns. There's also comfort in numbers, because I'm sure in your department, you're friends with a couple of the wives and girlfriends of officers. I would talk to them. Have you gone through this with your partner, your husband, your wife? How did you get them to get help? That sort of thing.
That's been, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
That's actually been one of the few plus sides of social media. I find that, you know, for all of the negative social media has brought to us, it has opened up this whole world of, you know, for my world, for me and people like me in the law enforcement family, there's all these wives, you know, police wives groups out there that you can be a part of, and you know, conversation and help and advice and just relatability is literally just like a click away. So one of the few upsides of social media, I think. So I do always encourage fellow LEOWs and partners to seek out groups.
Right. The other thing is, in the context of your question, is those wives, girlfriends, husbands, spouses should know if their partner's department has an EAP and call them. You know, I'm really worried about my wife. She's a cop. She's drinking more. Let me call the EAP. Let me schedule a session for me to get some insight. How can I convince my loved one to get help? And again, even if the officer, she doesn't think the drinking is a problem, to say to them, why don't you and I both go? I'm not an EAP expert. I'm not a substance abuse expert, but I noticed you seem to be drinking more. Do this for me. Let's go have a meeting. It's free. The EAP model typically is 3 sessions. So if you convince your loved one to join their spouse to talk about the concerns that she sees, that she thinks the drinking is out of hand, that may help too. So related to this is a now chief, but a woman who was head of a peer team in a big city many years ago, said to me, there's 2 things. Don't fuck with a cop's family or his or her money, is what she said. right?
Hmm.
So there is, and although we've made tremendous progress, there's still this, I want to protect my family. So
Right.
again, after the George Floyd situation,
Hmm.
where the nation erupted and all the stress related to that, defund the police, we heard anecdotally cops saying to their families, take the decals off the car, don't make any reference on Facebook that your husband, wife, dad is a cop. People are
Hmm.
retrenching, right? Because they
Yep.
felt they were under assault. It was
Right.
at that time that the police chief in Greenwich, Jim Heavey, his wife contacted us, was very concerned about what's going on with the families. And I think I may have shared some information with you. So we put together what we thought would be a family support group, right?
Mm.
It had Dr.
Right.
Legal, Dr. Kirscher, and myself. We scheduled the first one in the evening. We
Mhm.
mailed out an announcement to, at that time, it was maybe 52 police departments. It's free, it's in the evening. So Mr. Chief, Miss Chief, spread this out to the
Mhm.
rank and file. We were excited about this. We thought we'd get
Right.
a whole bunch of people. Our very first session, I think we had 6 or 7 wives on the call. Now,
Wow.
okay, first time
Hmm.
we did it, right? And it was powerful because the
Right.
women who were on it, because oftentimes we think I'm the only one struggling with this. And
Right.
one of the benefits of groups is no, we
Hmm.
all struggle with very similar things, right? So it was
Right.
powerful, even though it was a small number of people. No big
Hmm.
thing. We scheduled another one 2 weeks later, sent another announcement out. And
Hmm.
my guess is a couple of years ago, we have to have covered, with 57 police departments, I don't know, 2,000 to 3,000 cops.
Hmm.
I would be my guess. I never really
Good number.
added how many police officers in the various departments we work with. So we sent another one out. 2 weeks later, we had 4 people sign in. And so
Yeah.
at that point, we decided, and I felt terrible. I can't remember Chief Heavey's wife, wonderful woman. She was going to continue it on her own.
Hmm.
So this is how I process that. Is it that our contacts, chief,
Hmm.
whoever, didn't distribute that? Or
Right.
did they distribute it and the officer, she decided, I'm not going to share this with my family? I don't know the answer to that.
That's an excellent question. Yeah, that's a hard one. I know in my other lane of life, which is authorship, um, I I know that people don't, Zoom and all of these things seem like such a great idea. I love it. I think it's fantastic. You get to talk to people all around the world if you choose to, if you want to. But at the same time, I think people also resist it for some reason, and I don't have any answers either for you. I wish I did,
Yeah,
but it's so unfortunate because what a great opportunity, and what a great
yeah,
resource. And I think you probably did touch on some of it. There probably is some fear of, well, what are they going to say? If they get
right.
all together, what are they going to say? Because that is the thing. I remember in early years, dating my husband, we would go to an event, a police event, and there is always that conversation of, okay, so we don't talk about X, Y, and Z. Don't mention some things that and that is really the police wife's role, that you don't know anything, is basically, the wink, I don't know anything, I didn't hear anything, and that's what the smart ones do. The not so smart ones will gossip and say
Right.
things they shouldn't say, but that is part of the that's part of the education of becoming a
Yeah.
police wife, that you don't talk about certain things with certain people because of what might happen, where it might go. And that stigma is, I would actually, it's not fair to call that a stigma. I think that's just, I don't know, that's job preservation, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is, but I mean, when you hear, again, in those 2 smaller groups we had, to have one police wife say that their child was disinvited from birthday parties, and
Mhm.
you're talking about young kids who don't understand the
Right.
larger issues going on in our society, but people retrenching, people pulling back and
Mhm.
feeling mistrustful, and it's sad.
Yes.
It really
It's
is.
very sad. It has the environment, the climate, the social climate towards law enforcement. I would say it has changed many of us. It has made us very wary of non-law enforcement people.
Yeah.
Um, I'll only speak for myself because I think that's the only person I should speak for. But I would say, yeah, I do have some reserve when it comes to people that I don't know, and my guard is up. And when they do ask, what does your husband do? What do you do for a living? What does your husband do? And there was a very brief period of time, like you had mentioned, our law enforcement spouses were telling us, take the decals off, don't mention it,
Yeah.
don't talk about it. And
Yeah.
I did abide by that for a little while. And as you maybe could guess by now, I have a big mouth and I don't like being told that I can't say or do something because,
Right.
it might hurt somebody's fragile feelings or it might make them angry.
Right.
And so, yeah, so that didn't last very long for me. And that's when I actually became a more vocal law enforcement family advocate, because I'll be damned if you're going to tell me I can't vocally and loudly support people who are doing so much good in the world. And because you don't like them, because you have these absolutely false perceptions of what goes on here.
Right.
And yeah, so my mouth just got louder, but it works both ways in our world here. There's ones that won't say anything on social media, and then there's the big mouths like me. So it's
Right.
changed us. It's truly changed
Yeah.
how we live, how we look at people, how we do things.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
sad.
The only thing I would respectfully disagree with you on
Mhm,
is when I do a police training and a cop will say, everyone hates us. And my response is, no, that is
Right.
not true. It truly, and you look at the studies and the research, the majority of people want law enforcement. What they don't want is bad law enforcement. And,
Right.
and if we're honest with ourselves,
Mhm,
there have been some bad shootings in this country. It
mhm.
is what it is. But,
Right.
and I say this to my family and friends who know what I do, the majority,
Mhm.
98, 99% of the men and women I work with give a shit about what they do. There's
Right.
no question. Are there bad cops who've some bad decisions? Yes, just like there's bad social workers, doctors, attorneys in any profession.
Right.
But the majority of men and women who do this work deserve our support and respect. Last November, since I'm a post instructor, I was doing a class for recruits in Bridgeport.
Mhm.
And last November, I mean, this is the midst of all this craziness going on. And honestly, I walk into this room and there's 25 young, bubbly-eyed kids becoming cops in Bridgeport. And
Mhm.
part of me wanted to say to them, what the fuck is wrong with you taking on this profession? Now,
Yeah.
obviously, I don't say that
Right.
because it is a noble profession,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
However,
And
it's a stressful profession. And if
right.
you don't learn self-care, if you
Mhm.
don't learn how to take care of yourself, and by default, taking care of your family, it's going to mess you
Mhm.
up.
Right. That's absolutely true. And you're absolutely right. The majority of people, I do agree with you, the majority of people do respect the police, do appreciate the
Yeah.
police. It's unfortunately that the loudest voices are the ones that don't. And
Yeah.
and that's kind of my call to action for people to stand up, fight back,
Yes.
and just tell them, no, you're wrong. No, and
Right.
and arm yourself. My big thing is numbers and facts. Know the data, know the facts, know the numbers, and all of your feelings. I'm a facts over feelings girl. All of your feelings don't negate facts. So you can feel however you want, but the facts are going to be what they are. And yeah, and I think that's what we kind of have to fight against, that negative stigma, that perception. And for our law enforcement officers to, like you said, to remind them that the world isn't against you.
Right.
There are people who are against you,
Absolutely.
but the majority are with you and support you. And you're so right. I think the other misconception that the general public has is that just because we say we support police, they automatically think that means that we support all police, bad police, good cops, bad cops, it doesn't matter. We just blindly support them. It couldn't be further from the truth. Nobody hates a bad cop more than a good
Right.
cop and a good cop's family,
Right.
you know?
I
And
say that all the time. The same
yeah,
thing. No one hates a bad cop more than a good cop
yeah,
because it tarnishes the whole profession,
it does.
right?
It truly does.
Let's be real. The media, don't get me
Mhm.
started on the media. They'll
You and me
focus on
both.
the bad. They'll get focused on the bad shooting, which does
Right.
happen, right? But
Mhm.
they don't
Yep.
do the story about the cops who are playing basketball with kids, the cops who are helping and all. I mean, all the other good stuff that
Right.
cops do because it doesn't
Mhm.
sell. What
Right.
sells is the Derek Chauvin horrible
Right.
shootings.
Yeah.
That's what sells. And they
That's what
repeat it
sells.
and repeat it. And
Hmm.
let's see, Bill Maher, who I love, always says this all the time. Americans are
Hmm.
stupid.
Hmm.
We
Yes.
are. I don't mean
Yeah.
you and I. I don't mean you
Not
and I, of
us.
course. I mean everyone else.
Everyone
Because
else. Yes.
people don't educate themselves.
Right.
Really don't. They get
It's
their
so
news.
frustrating.
Yeah, it is. It
Hmm.
really is. It really is.
Yeah, the ability to use logic and reason and critical thinking uh seems to have disappeared. Like they just take everything at face value. Now we're in a day and age where a soundbite or a meme is the gospel, is a fact we take just because a meme said so. It must be true, and people won't research, they won't take the time, and literally most of the things that you hear or question, it'll take you about 15 minutes tops to research. What's the
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
thing? It's like there's one
yeah,
side and the other side, and the truth is somewhere in the middle.
yeah,
So you look for the middle, critical thinking. Let's
yeah,
bring it
yeah.
back. I want a slogan that says those. Let's bring back critical thinking.
Right. Or common sense,
Common sense would be
which doesn't
nice.
doesn't exist. Just to jump back to the family stuff and the connections with the families, one
Hmm.
of the good things that came out of the May 2nd SWAT explosion is all those wives making a text um, link with each other.
Oh, that's
Right?
terrific.
Because there was so much misinformation when that May 2nd SWAT explosion.
Hmm.
Idiots posting shit on Facebook. One of the cops who I've gotten very close to is this huge, muscular, tattooed guy.
Hmm.
And someone called his wife. Now, this was a friend saying they
Hmm.
found an arm with tattoos on it. Was it your husband?
Oh my God.
And so much misinformation within the first few
Wow.
hours. 8-second SWAT explosion, they
Hmm.
started making a linkage text messages. When we met with them, at least 18 of them 2 weeks later, they kept that up. The community,
That's so nice. That's
those are the
amazing.
sort of things should be going on in departments before there's a
Yes.
major critical incident. The
Hmm.
wives, the girlfriends, the family should have some sort of linkage to support each other. I think
Yes.
that's helpful to do as well.
Absolutely. Now, in your capacity, is that something, I don't know if you're even allowed to do that, because I know you said you can't specifically reach out to families, they kind of have to reach out to you. But is that something you can help facilitate with when you meet with these people, or is it just simply a suggestion? Just like, hey, you guys maybe want to set up this text chain where you guys can all keep in contact, or can they do that through your services? Is that even
Absolutely.
an
So,
option?
so, so both could happen. So we would
Okay.
encourage them to set that up. If they wanted to have a meeting with us, right? If maybe the concerns of this group was concerns about their children, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dealing with mommy being a cop or daddy being a cop, I'd bring in my partner, Mark Kirshner. He deals with adults and children. So he
Mm-hmm.
can talk to that with the family support group, if you will, of law
Okay.
enforcement about parenting issues.
Mm-hmm.
But absolutely, again, going back to all my EAP contracts have training hours, right? And if there was a need in a department, they wanted to set up a group for the wives and family members, and they wanted us to come in and talk about what are the signs and symptoms when I think my husband or wife's drinking is out of hand. We can do all sorts of educational topics for family members too. What,
That's
what,
fantastic.
what we can't do is I can't ask your husband's department, give me a list of all the wives and husbands, and we'll reach out to them. Yeah, it's not going to happen,
Okay,
right?
gotcha. Okay.
But what we did with the New Haven Fire Department after the tragic instances of, a line of duty death and another horrible situation the week before, I asked the chief if we can do a mailing, if we can write an information sheet to go out to families, and they agreed to do that. So
nice.
basically what we did is put together a letter that the city of New Haven, Chief Alston, had his staff send out to all the family members, because we can't do that. First of all, I don't have everyone's address, it's confidential, but they did. And the letter basically said, the recent losses don't just affect your husband, wife, firefighter, it affects the family. We're here to remind you that these are services for you and your immediate family too. Right?
Nice.
So that's the sort of thing that a police department, a fire department could do. Because again, to make sure everyone knows that these services, and I mean, doing this for so long, I as I said before, I say all the time, your job's not just about you.
Right.
Your job impacts your family. There's no two ways about it. It does.
Yep, that is so true.
Our difficulty is, as I said, we can't reach out directly to you. A cop would be offended. I mean, let's take a fictional example, right? Let's say I called you up. We don't know each other, but I know you're the wife of the lieutenant. And I call you up and say, hey, I just want to remind you that EAP is here for you and your family and stuff. What do you think your husband's reaction would be? And let's say he doesn't know me, but you come home and you say to him, hey, honey, I just want you to know, I got a call from the EAP guy for the department offering services. How do you think he'd respond to that?
Yeah, probably not too well. Yeah. Right? What's he calling you for? Where'd he get your number from?
Yeah, exactly. Right?
Just keeping it real here. All of them are going to say the same thing. What's he calling you for?
Absolutely. Right?
Yes. So I totally get your point. Yes, that makes perfect sense.
But your message to your group, to Blue Family Unity, is it doesn't matter where they're living, what state they're in. There's a good chance that their police department, especially if it's a big one, has an EAP. And there's a better chance that they don't know it.
I agree. You're absolutely right. Speaking just, from my own lack of knowledge, I did not know that. So I would like to believe that I'm not the only one that wasn't aware of that. And it's such a valuable tool, as we said before, such a valuable resource. So now if you are, so I'm kind of talking to the audience right now, if you are a Connecticut native, you live in Connecticut and you are part of the law enforcement or fire department family, and you are looking for some assistance, maybe Jim could give us his contact info, or how they can find you, Jim.
Sure. So two things. So if there's a Connecticut first responder on this call, police, fire, it doesn't matter. They can call our 800 number and ask, is my wife's, my husband's department, do you do the EAP for them? Right. So that number is 1-800-864-2742. And all they would need to do is, hey, I'm the wife of a Stanford police officer, a Windsor Locks police officer. Does your company do the EAP for my wife, my husband's department? We'll know that immediately.
Perfect.
I'm going to give you my landline. If someone has a question they want to ask me, my landline is 203-288-3554, extension 18.
Perfect. Jim, this has been fantastic. I can't thank you enough. You have given so much valuable information to people today, and I can't wait for this show to go live for everybody to see this, because I just appreciate you so much and appreciate what you do. Thank you.
Well, and let me reciprocate that. I think it's wonderful what you're trying to do to support the families of the men and women in blue, because it's so necessary, and it's so necessary at this time in our lives with all the craziness going on out there. Right? Absolutely.
Yep. We're going to bring the peacefulness back one way or another. We're getting it back. We're taking it back.
There you go. And listen, and again, I apologize for the technical difficulties over the last week. But we're here and we've done it. So anything further I can do, Elsa, just give me a holler.
I appreciate you. Were so worth the wait. Thank you very much. And we'll talk again soon. We'll definitely talk off air after. We'll exchange some emails. I'd like to find some ways that I can help you get your word out and get your mission out too for people. So we'll see what we can do.
Happy to do so. And give my regards to your lesser half, because clearly you're the better half.
I agree. I just ruined it by saying that. Thank you very much. You take
Welcome.
care and have a great rest of your weekend. Have a great weekend. What am I saying?
I will. You do the same. Stay safe.
Thank you.
There.
Take care. Bye-bye. If you're part of the law enforcement family, this is your show. Here we talk about all things Leo family life, the good, the bad, the funny and the sad, and everything in between.